Very good. How you doing?
We are so thankful you're going to be one of our inspiration artists at the studio today and that you've agreed to answer a few questions for the kids. This is Rey Alfonso, and he paints mostly on wood, and he's a multimedia artist. He uses lots of colors. He builds things on wood, carves into the wood, lots of things.
Sold Baltic birch. I use pigments and paints that I actually make.
Yeah.
I burn them. I actually have a cool torch which I use for all my colors. Yeah, once you get, but anyway, so I burn a lot of my colors into the wood, and it gives it texture. And anyway, so.
Ray, how old were you when you realized that art was important to you?
So very young. I mean, not as young as some other artists, but when I was like 7, 8, my mom had a friend that worked on cars, like 56, 57, the old Chevy, the old American cars in Cuba, and I was very interested in welding. But I was so young that he wouldn't let me weld on the cars, so he would give me. He was also my babysitter. My mom was a cab driver, so he would give me a pile of metal, like chunks, and he showed me how to strike an arc. And that was like, once I struck the arc, I was like, to me it was like magic, like I was the lightning king. So I got chunks of metal together that he would give me, and I started welding. After like a while doing that, then he let me weld on cars, build stuff. I built my own scooters, and I would build stuff for my friends in the neighborhood. So, and I built sculptures for the outside of my house, out of chunks of stuff.
Who were the people that encouraged you to pursue art?
This was much, much later than that. When I left Cuba, I was 17. So I went to San Francisco, and I was, a group of, I hung out with a group of artists. I didn't know they were artists, but they were fun BMXer. I rode BMX bikes. So, and they were all artists. And I was like, what's that mean? So I started learning about art, and then I decided to pursue it. And I went to art school for a little bit, didn't like it, so I started apprenticing when I was 18, 19. I went to college, and by the time I got to college, I knew, what I wanted to do. So I wanted to be a sculptor. And then started learning from sculptors around the Bay Area, welding, fabricating stuff, just making things.
Did anyone discourage you on your art?
Oh yeah, no, that's even at college. It's like, you can do art for a hobby, but you could never do it for a living. You're gonna starve to death if you're an artist, and blah blah blah. And being a new immigrant, all my advisors were older immigrants. Like, you need to go to law school, be a lawyer, or be a doctor. I was like, no, but I want to make things. I want to be an artist. So, and I could get a scholarship. Older Cubans would help me, because older Cubans help new Cubans. They would help me go to college. They would pay for a scholarship. They actually helped me pay if I went to college to be something else but an artist. So I decided not to finish college because I couldn't pay for it, and I started apprenticing with sculptors, and I realized it's like you can make a living, beautiful living. And anyway, so I learned.
Did you take art classes in high school or college?
I did not.
You did not?
No, I didn't take any classes in high school. I went to military school in Cuba, so when I left Cuba, I was in military school.
So you're basically self-taught until you became the apprentice?
Oh, very much so. And I apprenticed under a sculptor in San Francisco. His name was Court Marqueschi, and his art was light. So I actually helped him fabricate the pieces around light. He worked in this beautiful medium, light. So I would build the sculptures.
Where do you find inspiration for your work now?
Everywhere. I mean, when we're artists, we're filters of the world, kind of. So everything. When I walk around, I'm already absorbing nature. Like, I've got Manhattan. I don't have to go to museums. I do, but just in the street, it's just everything that I see get translated into my paintings and my sculptures. Because it's just, we are really sponges of everything. And then we have an old saying in my culture, like, it comes in through your eyes and comes out of your hands.
When you start a project, what excites you the most?
A lot of artists are excited about the finished product. I actually love my process, and I love material. I actually like scratching and burning. I actually love the process. When a painting is finished, I actually wrap them up in a box and put them away, and I start a new one. I just love the process of art making and mark making. Just love that part. Like right now, these paintings are on a place where they can speak back, because really, when it's an empty canvas, you just putting paint on it or burning it or whatever you're doing, it's just work. But after it gets to a point that the art actually starts speaking back. It's like, oh, I don't want any more red. And you're like, oh, it steps back, like, oh, that red is harsh. So it starts, I love that process. It's kind of like a conversation between, and I'm always looking forward to the painting that started to have a voice. Because it takes a while before they can be alive, like have a voice.
Right.
And then they're there, it's like, oh, wow. It's like, you can feel it communicating. So I'm always looking forward to that in every painting I make.
Yeah, it's fun to watch you paint and work. Is there anything that intimidates you when you start a piece?
Size sometimes. I work very large. These are my smallest works. Sometimes when I work in a very large piece, it's a huge investment on time and money and stuff. So that part and getting to a point where like if you work in a painting for a week or two and it still doesn't speak and it doesn't speak to you and people see it and they don't react to it, I'm like, man, this one might be the really bad one that doesn't become, you know what I mean? And being an artist, you want all of your pieces to become whatever they're gonna be. So if you get to a point where it's not speaking, you're like, what does it need? And I stand there and look at it for hours and hours, like I have no idea what it needs. But it still is not good.
At the studio, we have, when children start working on something and they do something that they thought they weren't supposed to do or that they don't like, we call that a happy accident. Does that ever happen to you where you...
Oh. Probably 20-30% of my work is happy accidents. I mean, it's like...
I think that's important
like
for
that,
the kids to know, though.
Like that red, the red is important, but what's more important, what's gonna happen if I burn it, or if I sand it, or when I do a clear, maybe that red is has a little mark in there that I didn't put there, but it kind of comes through. Like, for example, like that orange right there, I forgot all about it. I painted it white, I painted it red, and then that orange just came through, and it came from like a tiny little orange that I did after. So a lot of the accents are actually sometimes better than the stuff that you put in the canvas. It's because you can't fake that. It just came through. It just, yeah. And there's a great quote too that I use all the time. Like, I'll work up to 60% to 80% of the work, but the other 20% is chance and the viewer. You have to leave a space for them, the viewer, to bring something to it. If it's totally completed, there's just,
yes,
it's not universal, it's not everybody's. Because really, once they leave my studio, they're children of the world. They're everybody's paintings, really.
I think that's so great for the kids to hear.
Like, a great practice for me when you're blocked, or you just don't feel like the painting is working. And Patricia had a lot of this problem. She doesn't anymore. It's like, I always tell her, just look at the favorite part of your painting. Like in this painting, let's say, like, this is my favorite part right here. So I get a tool and I go, and I scratch it. So now this is all messed up a little bit. So now this looks really good. Then you go from being the worst to now this is not so bad, and then you fix that. And anytime you fix something, it becomes better because he has more of you in it. So if you make a mistake and you want to fix it, usually that area there is better than what you could do just naturally. Because you put more time and more love and more.
That's great. Do you ever find it hard to start a painting?
So I go back to art history. Like when people say, where did the inspiration come from? Where it's like, you know what? You stand, you go to work, you dress for work, you go there, and you just stand in front of the paint and you just get whatever color in your bucket and paint. And if you're not inspired yet, just keep painting. And inspiration comes working.
We've heard that before.
Yeah, like we have a saying, it's like, if you sit down, inspiration will not come, because inspiration is with somebody that is working. It's too busy, inspiration. Awesome. Helping somebody that is painting.
Do you ever find it hard to know when to stop?
Oh, so this is one of the reasons why we do the big studio with all the other artists. My last 5, 6, 7 paintings, they, as in my friends, my wife, took them away from me. They're like, this is done. And I'm like, no, it needs more black, it needs more. And they're like, why? It's like, I don't know, it just needs more. And they actually took it away, and those paintings actually sold. That was, there's a Submarino series, a series of, they look like submarines, I don't know why. I wasn't trying for submarines, but anyway, so they were great, but I didn't know because I've worked on them for so long that you actually can't tell anymore. it's like it needs an outsider to say, this is great, it's done. No, it's like, oh no, it still has a long ways to go. And they're like, where are you gonna put in more paint or more objects or whatever? Anyway, so it's really hard to stop, especially with abstraction. It's very, very hard. It's like, when do I stop? Do I stop with that red next to the pink? Or do I paint that gray, which I will? And when do you stop? I stop when I feel good. Like when I feel like the painting could be varnished and put away, because I don't want them to come back to my easels. Like that's the whole.
So we try to introduce the children to critiques at a young age. So do you find other artists critiquing work helpful?
Oh, it's fundamental. You have to have it. And if you can't take critique, you really have to. You have a thin skin. You can't be an artist, really. I mean, it's really because you're actually putting a piece of yourself out there for the world to criticize. I mean, really, that's what you're doing. You get it all out of your mind and put it out in the world. Once it's out of your mind, it's not yours anymore. So, and people are gonna criticize. I mean, they have positive, negative, and I always tell people, it's like, all critique is great. Negative, as long as you evoke an emotion reaction, your work is done.
Yeah.
When people hate my work, they're like, what is it? It's terrible. I say, thank you. That's what I was looking for. Or when people love it, I was like, thank you. At the same tone too, because to me it's the same. It does. I don't paint for that. It doesn't really matter.
I like what you said about once it's out of your mind and on the canvas, then it's not yours anymore. I like.
Oh yeah, it's public. I mean,
like
really,
that.
once you get it out, once you get it out of your mind, once you get it from the world, through your eyes, into your body, your mind, and comes out of your fingertips into the world, it's not yours anymore. It's back in the world. Remember, it's like a filter.
Yep.
Like an air filtration system. You get it in, you get all the dust in there, and it comes back out. It's the same thing. Go. Go.
How would you describe your art?
Right now it looks kind of geometric, but no, my art is mostly abstract. It's like, it's about feeling and color, and it's kind of like a dance between the lines. Like, a lot of my work is defined on the space between the two colors, which most people don't see it. It's really for me. So where the white meets the pink meets the black, that little space right there is where my art is. It's like the stuff that comes through. And usually the colors that you see on top, actually not what I enjoy. What I enjoy is the colors that are trying to come out through. And that's why I burned it. I sanded to give them a chance. So, but yeah, it's abstract, but it's kind of like abstract expressionistic, but not like what people think about abstract. It's just what I like to paint. Like right now I like the circles. Sometimes I like the stripes. Sometimes I paint it all black. It's just, but this is my new series here, which are like, just kind of like the colors of my childhood in Cuba. It's yeah. And I just love color. I mean, I have an emotional reaction to color, and I think everybody else does too.
Oh, absolutely. How has your art changed over the years?
Well, it's changed a lot. I used to work in giant sculptures, public art projects. That's what I actually did in San Francisco. And I did that for years, and I had a giant truck with a boom, and it was great. But I got tired of working with like cities and things. It was very bureaucratic. Is that the right word? Maybe. So make a big sculpture, you go through a committee, all this stuff. So I got tired of that, so I started making smaller sculpture. And then I started doing the shows all over the country, but I had a giant truck with a crane. So I actually taught myself how to paint because I wanted to make smaller, more portable work. But it's still in metal, so I actually used to paint on aluminum and titanium. Kind of like crazy. Yeah, still pretty big, like 10 feet, big paintings. And then I did that for like 10 years. I did that, 10 years, 12 years. And then I was like, I need to change, I guess. So I started developing this work on Baltic birch. Just took me a lot longer to develop because I wanted to have that. I didn't want to work on traditional mediums. I didn't want to work on acrylics or oils and stuff. So I actually make all of these colors and I make them for this type of wood. So, but yeah. So
is that oil paint or latex?
It's actually neither. They're enamel. They're oil enamels, and some of them are water enamels too. Like you can wash your brushes with it, but you have to mix it with linseed oil if you do. But it's they're just nice paints, really. There's nothing special about it. It's just the way that I use them. I mix them. I buy them in gallons. I buy like big gallons of it, and then I mix little bits at a time.
And then can you describe, other than the painting, I know that you do some
I
incising.
scratch a lot of it. I burn some of it. A lot of it I use most of my tools are like this right here. They're like this. So there are tools like that, and then I use a lot of beer pencils, like Home Depot pencils. And also I spray too. I don't know if that's good, but I spray a lot of it. It's just I just mostly put industrial tools, which is it comes from my sculpture background. So I like to have work that is also very durable. So my work is very durable. You can actually, I mean, if it wasn't for the wood, you could put them outside. But yeah, so. And a lot of it, I write things on. I write poetry on them. I do all kinds of stuff. This one's, I think I'm not gonna do that, but this is the first ones that I'm not gonna write on. Usually I write, I actually engrave poetry into the paintings. But this one I want to keep it a little simpler. So.
That's cool.
But anyway, so just I want to get the colors to do most of the work, which in my other work I had objects and writing and very intense. So I want this to be more about the colors and the conversation between the colors.
So how did you turn your art into your livelihood? What was that process? How difficult was that?
So it was difficult, but when I went from living on a expensive city in my teenage years and my early 20s, I lived in San Francisco. And most of my friends were artists, but they showed in galleries and museums and stuff. And they all had jobs, and I was like, what's the point about being So I started doing public art, but I still had to fabricate and build stuff for other people. So I was like, how can I make a living out of this? So I started doing I built some furniture, but I did smaller sculptures and started selling. And then one day I walked into an art show, like a street fair in Union Street? Yeah, okay, Union Street in San Francisco. And there was this guy, I'll never forget him, James was his name, selling these bronze pieces like that. And I was like, this is cool, but they're like $5,000, $6,000. I was like, this is very strange. And I was like, he was a really nice guy. I was like, hey, can I hang out with you and see what you do? He's like, I'm just selling my work on the street. I was like, people buy this stuff on the street? That's like $5,000. He's like, oh yeah, I do this show, once a year, and I do this, and he told me, I was like, wow, that's cool. So months went by, and friends of mine was like, oh, you should do that show, because they saw the sculptures that I had in my studio. You should do that show in Sausalito when I lived in San Francisco. I was like, I don't know, it's like street thing. It's, the Union Street is the only street show I've ever seen. So I applied for Sausalito, but they asked for slides. So I didn't have slides of my work. So I went to pictures printed in Walgreens, and I took him in person to the Sausalito show. I had no idea that was one of the best shows in the country. This is in the late 90s. I think it was 1998. Yeah, 98. But anyway, so I showed them pictures, like paper pictures, and they're like, wow, this is cool stuff. So, next time you need to do this and that. And I was like, I didn't know what slides were. I had no idea. But this is what I have. So I did that show, and I was like, and I sold out. So it was like, whoa. So then I started learning about the shows and what it took. And I still sold through galleries. I sold through like 4 or 5 or 6 galleries. But the transition really, I started making a good living, when I started doing shows. Like on the streets, or even shows from gallery by galleries that moved their shows. Like I did the one in New York, Art Expo New York. That was a really good show too. And then that's also when I realized that I needed to do sculpture, but also do painting pieces, things that went on the wall. So that's why I started doing the metal. The shows actually made me think, like, okay, if I want to make a living with this, I want to make it more efficient, easier to carry, and I want to be able to put them on the walls too, because you have 4 walls for every floor. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's. I think when I started making a living, I was like 23. Like I didn't have a job, I didn't fabricate, and I bought my first house when I was 25.
That's incredible. If you could, would you change anything in this journey you've been on?
No, actually, I think about this all the time. It's like, no, I've lived everywhere I've wanted to live. Like my wife Patricia is like, she knows the way I am, or we're very similar, even though she doesn't seem like she. Like we've lived anywhere. Like we lived in Chattanooga. That's the greatest country. And I told Patricia, let's move to California. She's like, oh, we just finished this great building. We had a great situation. Everybody loved us. We have friends. It was incredible. And she's like, yeah, but we've never lived in California as grown up, because I went from San Francisco to Seattle, and that's where we met. And she's like, yeah, let's go to California. Where would you like to go? I said, I hear Santa Barbara is nice. I'm just like, sure. So we moved it. So we do whatever, really kind of whatever we want. So I wouldn't want to change anything. And if I did, I would change it. I mean, I don't really, you know what I mean?
Right. What brought you to Greenville?
So we were living in Miami. So we moved from Chattanooga to California. And then in California, Patricia, it's kind of T. That's it. Go. I'm having a movie thing. Go. She's my assistant.
Yes.
No assistant. No, she's fine. All right. So what was I saying? Anyway, so Patricia was missing her mom. Her mom lives in Miami, and when we lived in Chattanooga, we would go there. It's close. But when we live in California, it's really far, and it's like geography kind of got in the way. And she's like, I'm tired of this. I want to be close to my family. So we moved to Miami. Long story, but I really didn't like it in Miami because I had too many Cubans. No, it wasn't. That wasn't it. But that was it too. But anyway, so traffic was terrible. People are not very friendly. And I told her, we want to live in a city like Chattanooga. And she's like, but we left Chattanooga. Why? It's like, I just like the South. I like it. Reminded me of my people in Cuba. She's like, we live in Miami. It's full of Cubans. Like, no. The people in the South are more like my people in Cuba. But anyway, so we were like, we had that in our minds. And then, like a week after I talked to her about this, we got a letter in the mail that I had been selected to be the poster artist for the Greenville show. I was like, isn't that Artist Sphere? She's like, yeah, it's in Greenville. I thought the city was called Artist Sphere. I don't know. Like, it's a beautiful name for a city. It's like, no, it's called Greenville, not Artist Sphere. I thought the city was called Artist Sphere. It's like, I want to live in a city that's called Artist Sphere. And we came to visit, and we were floored. We loved it. They treated us so great. They unveiled the poster, met the mayor, really cool. We walked everywhere. It was really, really, really cool. And then we went back home to Miami. I was like, I really like that city. And she's like, let's check it out. So we did a lot of research, and by the time we were ready for the show, which was like 3 months after the unveiling, we were ready to like look at real estate and stuff, and it was really cool. But it took us 3 years because we just built this huge sculpture park and studio in Miami, and we kept expanding. So it took us a while to wrap up Miami before we came
Right.
But,
Well, thank you so much
Great.
for letting us invade your beautiful space here. I do have one quick fire round I want to do with you.
all right.
I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. Just give me a one-word answer.
All right.
All right. Favorite primary color?
Pink.
Favorite secondary color?
Red.
Favorite shape?
Round.
Favorite time to paint?
7:50 p.m.
Favorite tool?
Scraper.
Favorite place to paint?
My wall.
Colors circles or squares?
Circles.
Straight lines or curved lines?
Curve.
Pets?
Dog.
And we've already met it.
Cheetah.
And describe your work with one word.
Tremendous.